Hi, Vijay Mistry here, and thank you very much for joining me in this first part of the three-part free video series where I will share with you the 27 corporate concerns which organizations have and how to overcome these and convert them into value drivers. So it doesn't matter whether you are a small, medium, large organization in any sector, it is all about how to become an effective director, executive, manager, professional, or entrepreneur. So let's move straight to the training. Now, the first point is the 4 core pillars. What are these pillars? The first one is finance. I have seen directors and executives who struggle when it comes to understanding financials. Here in London, we had JJB Sports, Republic, Comet, which all fell. What were some of the reasons? They did have financial experts with them. They did have financial forecasts, I believe. They must have had management accounts. They had their financial reports as well, but something did not go right. And that raises a concern. What is the concern? What went wrong? Here are a few tips which for you to understand. The first one is that make sure that your financials are real time. They have to be current, they have to be real time whenever you're looking at your financials. Number 2, have a deeper insight on what the financials really mean. The meaning behind the financials, the meaning behind your forecasts as well. Number 3, try setting criteria. Look into what you can do to have substantiated criteria in place as information so that you've got a roadmap in front of you. Number 4, ask those probing, incisive questions as well. If you see a smoke screen, then you would like to, or if there are certain figures you don't understand, then probe deeper and find out exactly what the reasons are. These are some of the things that you can do to improve and elevate your understanding in financials. But that's not enough. Financials alone is not enough. So that leads me to the second pillar, which is risk. Let me ask you, how much aware are you as far as risk is concerned in your organization? What is your understanding of risk in your sector? Here in London, Royal Bank of Scotland, Barclays Bank, HSBC, UBS have lost some reputation due to certain issues. Now, here's my question to you. What are those risk elements in your organization? Have you considered operational risk? All the elements of operational risk? Have you considered strategic risk? Have you considered financial risk? And have you considered hazard risk? And the sub-elements of all these risks. The full framework must be in place. Now, I'm not talking about heat maps or I'm not talking about risk registers here. I'm talking about having specific outcome drivers in place. If you have specific outcome drivers in place, you will be able to look at it from a holistic framework, from a coherent, systematic point. So that is what the whole point is. So you must understand risk and see how you can really make it more deeper, more coordinated. The third pillar is strategy. Now, if you're a small or a medium organization, it is fine. You might have a business plan. That is fine. But here's the situation. How well are your team, or how well do the board of directors as well as your executive team know strategy? What is the depth they know about the strategy? All these failed organizations and all these organizations which are struggling, they all have very good strategies. But what seems to be missing here? The point I believe is this. The first pillar, which is finance, the second, risk, and the third, which is strategy, have to be integrated. They have to be looked at it from a holistic standpoint, from a coordinated standpoint, from a linkage standpoint. And that is what is going to drive that corporate growth in your organization. But there's still something missing because these 3 pillars are not enough. So the fourth pillar is best practice. Best practice dictates that you have the right people at the right place doing the right job using the right resources. and tools. But I would like to ask you this question. Do you have the people in the right place doing the right job? Is that connectivity there? Everybody understands what best practice is, but how well are you living this? How well are you really applying this best practice in your organization? I believe that best practice should be standards of excellence that you need to apply. What are standards of excellence? Standards of excellence include being more curious, being more incisive, having that trust, having that coordination, having that constructive intellect construct within your organization, which is running in a systemized format. That is what you need to really look into. What else do you need for best practice? You need somebody to guide you, to coach you as well. And I'm appalled by this particular situation because board evaluation, self-evaluation seems to be missing. That progression to excellence is missing in organizations. I love coaching. I love being a board advisor for small, medium and large organizations. And one reason is I can look into how I can stretch the directors and executives so that they achieve those standards, so they achieve that excellence which is needed for organizations to grow. So that is what you really need to look into. Look into how you can improve on your best practice. Let's move to the second point, which is work overload. In fact, in work overload, I need you to consider this. How much of productive time do you think is eroded due to work overload in your organization? I believe that 20 to 25% of your growth is hampered due to work overload. Everybody's in their comfort zone. I need you to step up into thought leadership. I need you to look into how you can apply more leadership skills into setting the roadmap. So that's what you really need to consider. And here's a question for you. Do you have an organized, systemized approach in place? Here's another question for you. On a scale of 1 to 10, where are you as far as productive hours are concerned? How many of those hours are productive? I did this small sort of exercise with one director, and we came up to find out that 3 hours of his time was wasted, or rather was used in activities which were unproductive. 3 hours a day on unproductive work, which leads to 15 hours a week. So you can just imagine the magnitude. That is over 600 hours in a 40-week working year. So you can imagine the impact it can have in your organization. So I really need you to look into how you can improve on your skills. And what I propose is try looking into the 4 core pillars, developing your skills on the 4 core pillars. That is what I need you to look into, which leads me to the third point, which is unpreparedness. I have seen directors and executives go into meetings unprepared. In fact, they execute assignments without the level of attention and without the level of immersion needed to make a difference. They say chance favors the prepared mind. And so you need to really figure out exactly what you can do to be more prepared. Whenever you go for meetings, what is it that you can do? Here are a couple of tips that I can give you. The first is try making sure that you've got some blueprints of the meetings that you are attending. Figure out exactly how you can construct certain key condensed reports and statements for your organization so that you have that impact, the 80-20 principle. So you need to look at it from that particular standpoint. I got this other question from directors, and it's to do with work overload and unpreparedness, and they say that, look Vijay, we've got only 8 or 10 meetings to attend in a year to make a difference to this organization. And I asked them that what is your role as a director in your organization? You have to safeguard the assets of your organization. You have a stewardship role in your organization. It's about directing and controlling. And the one word which I can use here is accountability. Where is your accountability in all this? And they say that, but it's so difficult. How can we do this within a span of just a few meetings? Yes, you can. There are systems out there. In fact, I have a program, it's a 15-16 hour program where I explain a systemized approach. So you need to really work out and figure out what it is that you can apply to add leverage to your time, to make it more productive. That is the important issue. Let's move forward to the next point, which is micromanaging. Now here's the situation. You might say that I spoke about the 4 core pillars where I'm talking about competence, but at the end of the day, I'm talking about avoiding micromanaging. But here's my point. The 4 core pillars is that mix. It is that corporate growth mix that you need to make sure that you can direct and control in an effective and impactful manner. Micromanaging is when you start interfering with management. When you interfere with management, you're disrupting the empowerment within your organization. In fact, the 5E framework which I spoke to you about, I'll be sharing that in the next video. But for now, I just want you to understand that do not hamper empowerment. Let management do what they are doing. And that is what best practice is all about. Having the right people doing the right job. So let management handle management issues. You need to step up into thought leadership. You need to step up into leadership skills. You need to start crafting the future and seeing how that can be integrated into the management mix. So that is what you have to work with. You need to come up with that success recipe for the future to build an advantage for your organization. So avoid micromanaging at all standpoints. Come out of micromanaging. I would like to share with you what one of these directors told me as far as micromanaging is concerned. And he said, Vijay, sometimes I don't trust my staff to really, and this was a small organization, that my staff would really execute these duties properly. And for that reason, I go and support and guide whenever they have this problem. And I tell them that, look, engaging, coaching and guiding is a different description altogether. Establishing those parameters, the work parameters, is the most important element. So you need to look at it from that particular standpoint and see how you can avoid micromanaging but have what I consider conditional trust. Trust your employees with conditions. That doesn't mean that you don't trust them completely. What I mean is have those parameters so they do not breach certain boundaries. They don't breach one of the pillars, which is risk. That is what you need to really look into. Let's move to the next one, which is lack of focus. Research shows, and I read this somewhere, that you would achieve 95% if you immersed on one particular project. 95%, and that would dilute to 70% level of achievement if you concentrate on 2 issues. So multitasking is something you need to avoid or look into more deeply. Others say multitasking is stimulating, but I believe that if you concentrate and focus, laser sharp focus on your assignments and on the thought leadership, on the leadership skills, that is what is going to drive your organization to a level of excellence. So find out how you can apply this. This is a key challenge which organizations have. 70% of organizations, I believe, are just surviving. They are into making short-term profits. I want you to look into sustainability, and the sustainability is there. You can make it happen. So look into that recipe which is going to lead you to a sustainable organization. The only way you can do this is to have that long-sightedness in your organization and link it with your short-term goals. Long-sightedness does not mean 10 years from now, but it could mean 3 years for your organization, depending on the sector in which you are. So figure out exactly what you can do to improve on your focus, on your discipline, on the intellect construct that you have in your organization, so that everybody is on the same page and that pattern is there, it is recognized, and the focus is there. So that is key to the success of your organization. Let's move forward to the next point, which is oversight weaknesses. Now, going back to my example when I was talking about Barclays Bank losing some of their reputation, one of the key reasons was that the CEO and the board of directors were unaware of what was happening, from what I understand. Now, here's the situation. Why should that happen? Why should that happen? The reason is the accountability, the alignment of accountability is not in place. The clear-cut role descriptions have not been fully thought through. Board of directors should be the initial authority, not the final authority. That means, what does that mean? Best practice means raise your standards. I want you to go to world-class standards, which means you need to redefine, you need to revisit, you need to re-engineer certain systems, certain structures. And that can only happen if you look at it from a different standpoint, from a different mindset, from a mindset of having that holistic picture in place. British Petroleum lost 11 people. There was a spillage of 4 million barrels of oil in that fire which occurred, in that blast which occurred in the Gulf of Mexico. And the whole situation is, it all boils down to oversight weaknesses. And the oversight weaknesses can only come into play if you really look into real, meaningful monitoring mechanisms for your organization and the frequency. So it has to be attention driven, and it has to be fully laser sharp focused, and your priorities should be in place. That is what true monitoring is all about. So you need to look at it from that particular standpoint. Let's move forward to the next one. I have seen organizations having spillover on their agendas. There are decisions which are being delayed. These can erode the energy level of your board level discussions. If you are a small organization, if you have any of these delayed decisions, you'll also realize that these can be true energy drainers. So what you need to do is uphold clarity in what you do. Identify, confront reality. There are times when you want to put off an item. Rather than put off an item, it is good to confront. It is appropriate that you confront an item and come to a decision which everybody is collectively in agreement with. Now here's the situation. You might have a sensitive decision which requires more attention. It might require more time as well. It could be a litigation, it could be another case, or it could be something which has a huge weight on your organization. I can understand that. But if you confront reality, if you look at alternates, if you really seek certain directions, if you seek for alternates, you will see that there would be certain places where you can overcome these hurdles and try executing, have that speedy execution in your organization. Let's move to the next point, which is complacency. Now, here's a big virus in organizations, being complacent. And why do people go into this comfort zone, as I put it? They are not stretching, they are not going into that raising of standards. You need to raise your standards. You need to move from complacency to progressive standing. You need to go into that progression. And the only way you can break complacency is by making sure that your reading is up to date, you got the right industry know-how, you are curious at all times, and you've got some sort of a direction which you are going to. So it's always stretching. The direction is always stretching you to the right place. So whatever you do, try avoid being complacent. Complacency is going downhill. So you need to really raise your standards. You need to look into how you can improve your standards and be ignited. That is the key when it comes to complacency. All right, let's move to the last point, which is being biased. Now, there are organizations out there who rely on one or two of their personnel, thinking they are the drivers of the organization. Now, this is where directors make mistakes as well. This is where there are errors being made. Being biased on one or two people is not a good sign. And here's the reason why. Yesterday's achievements are not tomorrow's achievements. Yesterday's profits are not tomorrow's profits. Yesterday's profitable divisions are not tomorrow's profitable divisions, and vice versa. There have been instances. I went into one particular organization, a medium-sized organization, where the group CEO was relying on the head of one P&L center, and it was a new venture. What really happened is, the first year this venture was profitable, and I told these guys, I told them that, look, be careful of how much you spend on capital. When it comes to growth, progress steadily rather than exponentially. So you need to be very careful about how you grow. Now, my advice was not taken to its fullest depth, which I would want them to, and it so happened that the second year they again made good profits, and they ended up buying more equipment, they ended up buying more cars, they ended up going into better offices as well. The third year, profits dropped down by 50%. And that's when they asked me that, now what do we do? You have to make sure, before it is too late, make sure and recognize each and every element of your resource mix. Make sure that each and everyone is appreciated as well and recognized, because that is going to be the true mix for the corporate growth for your organization. I hope you take 1 or 2 points out of this and apply to your organization and make a positive difference to your organization. In the next video, I will share with you another 9 key concerns, and I look forward to seeing you then. Bye for now.